I'd like to open the meeting. Welcome to the Lee Select Board meeting. It's November 1st, 7 o'clock. And our first order of business is we have the open session minutes from October 27th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. And unless there's anything further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a public hearing. This is for the transfer of an all alcohol license, and the transfer is from the lake house into Waterside Resort Properties. Do we have anyone here from Waterside or Lakefront? Please introduce yourself. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Martin from Martin and Oliveira on behalf of the applicant. With me as well is the principal of the applicant, Kurt Hinderbitson. And also here tonight are the sellers with Tom Martin and his client, Maggie Berry. This is a transfer of the liquor license. My client's purchasing the inn. Really, in terms of the purchase itself, there are no planned changes of any material manner with respect to the operation of the inn at this point. The closing is scheduled to occur as soon as the liquor license application is approved by the ABCC. Everything else as a condition to the closing has been set. Financing is in place, the title's set, and all that sort of thing. We did have a couple of supplements to the applicant because I think the DOR and DUA certificates were a little bit stale, but we updated those. Those came in today. I think I also provided some additional information. There's a sort of a tiered structure. My client has a couple of different entities that are involved. There's actually going to be a real estate holding entity. The operating entity is actually your applicant, Lake House Inn Management. But if you look at the sort of the ownership tier, everything flows back in its entirety to Kurt Hinderbitson personally. It's just that he holds some of his assets in the operating entity. Some assets will be held in the real estate entity, and ultimately to him through a real estate or an estate planning trust. But I think you have all of those documents in that that arrangement. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there were any other open items or questions on the applicant. I know that we've gone back and forth a bit and it's provided a couple of supplements, but
thank you.
Yeah. Any questions or?
Bob, Gordon, do you guys have anything?
So essentially, things will remain the same then?
Yeah, and Kurt actually runs the, he purchased the Cornell Inn spring of 2020, 21?
No, January 2021.
January 2021, great time, right in the middle of COVID. Came out of COVID in the spring, and quite frankly has done extraordinarily well at the Cornell Inn, and looks to bring that success down to the Lake House Inn.
Great.
No, I don't have any questions.
At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public if anybody has any comments they'd like to make, this being a public hearing. Please come to the podium. Not seeing anyone. Anyone on Zoom like to comment? Have any clarifications? I don't see any hands raised. I have to scroll down here. It's a long list. So, if there's no other comments at this point, I'd entertain a motion to approve the transfer of an all alcohol license.
I'll make a motion that we transfer the annual all alcoholic inn holder license from Waterside Resort Properties LLC to Lake House Management LLC.
And that's the way it's gone. Okay. I'll second that. Just want to make sure we got the license going the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's Lake House Inn Management, LLC.
Lake House Inn Management for the record. Thank you. Yeah, if there's no further discussion, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we have public comments. If anybody has a public comment at this point, please raise your hand on Zoom or come to the podium.
Good luck.
Thanks for coming.
Yep,
Thank you.
see ya.
Just what, we'll just give it a
See ya.
minute. So I don't see any hands. Nobody's getting up to the podium. All right, well, if there is no public comment, we will move right into general business. So our first order of business is we have an appointment, firefighter EMT Nathan Myers. I have a letter here from Ryan Brown. Chief Brown recommends the applicant here. So,
This is just a part-time,
part-time position.
fill-in person for when there's an empty shift.
I'd make a motion that we approve the appointment of, what is his name?
Nathan
Sorry,
Myers.
Nathan Myers as a EMT firefighter by the recommendation of the Chief Brown.
I'll second that.
If there's nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next order of business, we have an assessor's tax classification hearing. Do we have someone from the assessor's office? Please, for the people at home, identify yourself and
I'm Sarah David from the assessor's office. So the purpose of this hearing is to decide whether you as the selectmen and the town want to have one tax rate or two. One tax rate would be for residential and open space, and the second tax rate would be for commercial, industrial, and personal property. Tyler values were approved by the Department of Revenue today, final valuation. So I was very excited about that. The final LA4 values for the town were on your sheet, were $1,236,219,971. The average single-family home value is $345,403, with an average single-family home of 1,843 homes, with $636,579,000. New construction for this year, new growth is $8,559,700 for real estate, commercial, industrial. And our personal property new growth this year is $11,001,180 for a total new growth for FY23 at $19,569,880, which is down from last year, but there was an issue with last year. So, but this does help lower our tax rate. We do have a couple of things that for local assessment that the towns would to be aware of for exemptions and options. The open space discount does not include land under the Chapter 61 Forest Agricultural 61A or B, or permanent conservation restrictions held for the production of income. This percentage of value shifts to the residential class. So we don't have open space in Lee. We haven't, I don't think we've ever had open space in Lee, so this really doesn't apply to us. The residential exemption, that would shift the burden slightly away from lower valued homes and increase the higher priced homes. There are approximately 20 cities in the eastern part of the state that grant this exemption. These are larger cities with owners of many rental properties, vacation homes, resorts, and higher valued homes. We've never used the residential exemption here in Lee. It wouldn't really be beneficial for us. There's also the smaller commercial exemption, which may be applied to certain commercial businesses that assessments is less than $1 million and occupied by businesses certified by the Department of Employment and Training. If there are several businesses in one building, the owner of the building does not have to pass the savings on to the tenants. The total gross valuation of the exemption is distributed to the non-qualifying commercial property. I'm not sure if that we have businesses that use this, but they can certainly look into this. We have a listing of the small commercial exemptions in my office that have this. I get a list every year, but we don't actually, I don't supply that information. And again, we do have a simplified DOR LA5, which doesn't apply to you either. So with that, I need to ask if the Board of Selectmen will vote to do a one tax rate or a split tax rate for FY '23, or if you have any questions that you'd like to ask.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can you explain the split tax rate issue to me? I mean, I
Certainly.
know in the past, we've always gone with one tax
Correct.
rate to treat the businesses and residential basically the
Correct.
same tax rate.
So
So maybe you could explain for people at home.
So a split tax rate would be, the residential base would have a lower tax rate, and the commercial tax rate would be higher
Correct.
to offset. And technically, we don't really technically have enough commercial tax base to apply a split tax rate in Lee. So we've always gone with just the single tax rate. Wouldn't it be beneficial for us to split it
Sure. Other than Pittsfield, I know they do, I believe they do a split rate.
in Lennox?
Yeah,
Lennox does a split
also.
tax rate, yes.
Okay, any other cities or towns in?
Not that I'm aware of off the top of my head, just Pittsfield and Lennox that I'm
Sure.
aware of.
Okay.
It's always been the recommendation of the assessors.
It has been always the recommendation for us to do single, just
Well, that's
because,
what I remember.
yeah, our commercial base doesn't really apply for a split tax rate in Lee at this time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very difficult to get out of it too, once you get in it.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. And that was the only question I had.
Now, we don't have the tax rate for this.
We do not,
Yeah.
as of right now, no. We're still
What
waiting
was that,
for,
what was last year's?
it was 1365. So when we have an increase in valuations like we did this year, there's always a decrease in the valuation, in the tax rate, excuse me. So we're hoping that we're going to get the tax rate down into the $12 range, but I can't say for sure at this time what it's going to be, because I don't have those figures yet. I'm still waiting for some certain pieces of information to come in. Once they do, I'll be able to let you know what the tax rate's going to be. I don't have that tonight.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we stay with a single tax rate in the town of Lee.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Anybody on Zoom?
We got no hands.
Okay, good.
Yeah. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thanks, sir.
Think there.
Our next order of business, we have a gas permit application. This is the installation of a new gas service at 225 George Street. Looks like all the way at the end, cul-de-sac. I have DPW and fire's police chief sign off, that is.
So you don't need a detail up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's always a note here which is helpful to attempt to bore all blacktop areas if possible, which is appreciated.
Yeah, that street is being paved, right? Well, they just did the milling on it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so only it's a good time.
It'd be great if they get it done before
Yeah.
before
Good,
you
good
finish it.
time.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay.
So if there's no questions, if anybody's good with this, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Berkshire gas permit for 225 George Street.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Now, next, we have a discussion. So I think we have some people from Sweetgrass here on Zoom. And I see somebody's head popped up. Is this Pete DiAgostino? So maybe you can start us off, Pete. I know there's a slight change to your site plan here that we wanted to discuss with.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you so much for having us back. It's always great to be in Lee, although we're not out there in person. We certainly appreciate it. We have a full team with us this evening. I won't spend the time introducing everybody unless they're going to have to speak for some reason, but we have on video Cassandra, who's one of the owners, and Dan Delaney, who is civil and traffic. So that should cover everybody, but we got other folks should we need additional questions answered. We just thought we'd bring a bunch of folks with us. To that end, the site plan has been updated to reflect the MassDOT approval that we received. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, share my screen?
Yes.
I just need somebody to allow that, and then I'll bring up the.
Okay. Give me 1 sec.
You can go to secure view, maybe get just him on there. Get that first.
Oh. Do you have the share button available?
I do, but it's currently blocked. But I'll start talking while you're working through that. So the board may remember when we were before the planning board during site plan review, as well as the special permit hearing, the right of way in front of our location is owned by MassDOT State Highway. MassDOT controls that area. Both boards deferred to MassDOT for us to seek an access permit. And so upon the request of both boards to go and apply to MassDOT for the permit, we've subsequently done that. MassDOT has approved the design in accordance with the MassDOT design standards, and they have issued the final access permit, and that permit's already been submitted to the building commissioner.
Pete, can you try your share button again for us?
Yep, perfect. Working great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So MassDOT has issued the access permit. And so the change that we're really talking to on the site plan is this area here. As you can see, just as a brief overview.
Yeah, sorry, I gotta ask you to pause, Pete. We're getting a blank screen. I don't know if maybe
try it one more time.
Sure.
Can you see that now?
Zoom is telling me that you started sharing.
We'll give it a second.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Pete, I can see it. This is Dan Delaney over at Fuss & O'Neill. It popped up here, so maybe just give it a second.
Okay.
I can see it too.
Great.
I can too. This is Julie Barrett.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if you just let me know, maybe it's just taking a second to load for you guys.
I'm muted. Sorry, Pete. Now that we got the technical stuff out of the way. Continue.
No worries. Are you able to see the image?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. So the existing opening runs from where you see the R3 with the arrow, you see the shaded line here. That's the existing opening beginning, and then it runs all the way clear across to this side here. This is the existing conditions as they are today. And there's additionally, as you may remember, I'm sure all of you are familiar and had dinner here, there's this kind of little smaller island in the middle of the opening in some way. And what MassDOT has required us to do as part of their design standards is we now are closing this curb cut, which generally speaking is universally accepted as a safer condition. And we're now controlling traffic through this single point of access here. Additionally, MassDOT, just as a side note, had requested that we increase the width of the island. You'll see it's slightly wider than before. This was really for future development in the event that MassDOT were to come back and want to add sidewalks or something to that effect. So the width of this will be 5 feet. So this is the approved design from MassDOT, and this, was certainly discussed at the meetings, but we didn't have the final approved permitted design, and so we're back here to update the board with this information and answer any questions relative to this that we can.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
I'll open it up for questions. Gordon, Bob, you guys have anything you'd like to ask first?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gordon.
thank you for showing this on the screen. I think one of the questions I had was, I believe that I thought part of this closure was because you foremade a section of the property along the Lennox line. And my question was, is that true? Is that foremade now so that it's separated off from the other parcel that's in Lee?
I don't know. I apologize. I'm not sure what foremade means, but these.
You did a land transfer, or you cut it and basically you cut it and separated the Lennox land from the Lee land.
Sometimes they call it ANR.
An A&R approval not required?
Yeah, I don't think we did an A&R plan here. We just registered the 2 lots. Because this was, you'll see this dashed line that I'm going over here. This was on our original, this is the Lee Lennox town line that you're discussing. This was part of our original submittal to the town. The Lee Lennox line has always been shown on the plan. We did do the engineering work and filed with the registry the appropriate lot information now, so that this is a non-buildable Lennox parcel, if you will, this little triangle here, and then we have the Lee parcel. But the depiction of the line has always been on our plans. But what we did is we still control this property, and so what we did in working with MassDOT is really, we wanted to make this intersection, as safe as possible, as you can imagine. So under the existing conditions, you would have traffic entering and exiting into the Lee parcel. You would have also had the ability for traffic to enter and exit into the Lennox parcel, which was the existing conditions and which was what was approved in the original permit. But working with MassDOT, this was essentially the what them and the engineers came up with that they thought created the safest environment for this traffic flow to the site.
So my remembrance was that there was going to be, that was going to be the entry, or one of those curb cuts was going to be the entry, and then the other one was going to divide it in half so that you had a left turn lane and a right turn lane leaving your site. I thought that's what was proposed to the planning board for site plan review. So I'm kind of, what instigated this closure of that section if it wasn't just for the separation of the parcels?
This was MassDOT. So we
came
did
to you?
discuss that. I don't know that we actually submitted that drawing, but that was part of the discussion at the planning board as a potential approach to traffic management. I don't think we formally proposed that. My memory is it was a discussion, but ultimately, because we're in the MassDOT right of way and the fact that this project required an access permit, we ultimately had to meet the MassDOT design standards, and this is the output of that permitting process that's required by the state. So
Yep.
I do recall that conversation actually, and I think we all understood that we had some ideas of what we could potentially do here. I don't think we included them in any drawing. I'm fairly confident we didn't. But we did have that discussion, and if I remember correctly, you may have been on the board at the time, but I could be correct.
Yeah, I was acting on the planning board because we had.
That's what I thought. Yeah, so we had that discussion certainly, but ultimately, once we filed with MassDOT, we had submitted some ideas to them as to what we thought the intersection could be. The MassDOT came back with the changes that they wanted and that they were willing to approve, and this is what they approved.
Pete, the movable planters are also a new feature, correct?
Yeah, we wanted to delineate the line. Folks may remember, the town of Lenox had some concern about there potentially being, cannabis activity in the town. And so just to do some delineation of the spaces, we've put these movable planters. The idea there is, we'll continue to evaluate how this could be used, potentially snow storage or some other capacity, and we would work with the town of Lenox if anything changed. But this was really just in an effort to address any concerns that the town of Lenox may have that folks won't be in Lenox, if you will.
Yet, so you still own the property there. It's still part of the overall, it's still the same ownership and under the same control.
I'm
Lennox
not sure the
parcel, the
entity
Lee
structure.
parcel.
Yeah, I'm not sure the entity structure, but it's essentially all the same owners. Yeah, I believe it's a separate entity for the other parcel, but same ownership group. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to figure out with my first question, is who owns the Farm Aid piece that's in Lenox and who controls it versus the piece that's in Lee?
The owners of the owners of Lee are the same owners of Lenox, but through different entities.
But same people control both properties.
Correct.
All right. Yep. No, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around what's going on here.
No, that's a fair question. Yes, I just was clarifying that. Well, it's separate entities. It's shared ownership.
I know you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I was just kind of just wanted to reassess the alterations that you're making is a concrete strip to close the parking area up. You're gonna add some planters to sort of delineate the boundary. That's basically the extent of the alterations that you've made from the
Right.
from the last plan to this plan.
Correct. And then Dan, if I don't want to do all the talking, guys, only because we have the benefit of having Dan, the civil engineer, here. So that's my understanding, but Dan certainly is probably a better person to address just the technical changes with the MassDOT approval.
Yeah, that's essentially correct. The changes to the plans from last you saw them, Mass DOT wanted us to use a specific detail, which is included on the lower left-hand side of the plan for that island. It's just their standard HMA curb island with sloped edging. You can see there, that's out of their standard details to close off that that portion of the access to the site. And then basically the remaining width there is a 24-foot standard access that Mass DOT wants. I know that that's one of their main charges when you're working with state highway. We do a ton of both state highway work in terms of access permitting and roadway design and access control and limiting access and making access safer is a big charge of theirs right now in a lot of areas. And this is definitely one that that will benefit from a safety perspective, will benefit from having a very defined and a single point of access and egress.
Seems like to me, if they really wanted to make it safe, they would have added a turn lane going both ways and widened the road through there. If they were really serious about controlling and being safe in and out, because looking at some of the other cannabis around the town, not just in town, but around the county, it seems like there's some that are very active and have cars backed up going in and coming out.
Yeah, I think
Just an observation.
No, I understand the observation. I think the numbers really didn't support it from MassDOT's perspective. And then I know a lot of it's starting to normalize, at least our experience in the cannabis industry is, a lot of the long lines we were seeing back when INSA and some of those started several years ago are starting to normalize with the market maturing. So, MassDOT's perspective, they didn't see the numbers or the justification. It's, the parking lot is not a large lot. It's, I believe it's under 40. I think it's 36, 37 spaces. So the the driver for a separate turn lane just isn't there from a, from a statistic standpoint. But I understand the concern. In a perfect world, you'd put them in everywhere, but given the limited right of way and the fact that the demand didn't drive it, they didn't require it.
I think one of the concerns was it's so close to a very steep kind of turn in the road as you go toward Lee to the south. Where cars coming around from Laurel Lake end and the town end, it's going to come onto this very fast coming around that corner. There isn't a lot of detail or a lot of distance there. And also in reading Fuss and O'Neill's, I think it was their report, it seemed to all be based on the traffic flow from a restaurant. And this is going to have considerable more action all day long. That was what I remember reading in the documentation.
There was a comparison between the original restaurant use and the proposed cannabis use, and it's all based on the peak hour. What's the busiest time for the adjacent roadway? So that's where the numbers and the comparison came from. And that's really just to give a sort of a tactile comparison of what the new traffic versus the old traffic would be. You're correct in that what the restaurant isn't the future condition. That was done as a way to sort of benchmark it, to give folks an idea what the difference in the traffic generation between the two uses at the peak hour of the adjacent roadway.
Yeah, Gordon, and this is Pete again. I remember, we discussed this pretty extensively during the site plan review process, and I think we actually had at the time a supplemental letter put together by Fuss and O'Neill specifically on this point. And ultimately, I think what Dan just said is, that this is what MassDOT was, both, I guess, willing to approve and require, depending on how you want to view it. But so that's where we ended up through their approval, which, as having been through this more than one other time, ultimately we just have to meet the requirements in their right of way. So this is kind of the approval that we ended up with from them.
The 24-foot proposed curb cut, was that also the minimum requirement they had? I see there is room to make it wider. Oh, no, I see. Not really, because that's the town line.
It actually does.
Really handcuffed into there.
Yeah, it is. So that's actually, that measurement is sort of the narrowest. If you look at the way they define it is straight through, as a straight line through there. But for right turn movements there's a considerable curb flare. If you zoom in, Pete, there is a considerable curb flare there. And while, when we do the sight line and those analyses, you don't take the fact that people will creep up there to make a right turn into account, because you want to look at a standard condition. The reality is most right turns out of there will be in that area, and that flares out to over 30 feet at that point. But that narrowest point is what we would design to there, that 24-foot constriction, because you want to make sure you have the 12-foot lanes there.
At that point, I don't have any other questions. Just, I want to go back and look at some of the other documentation. I guess at some point we have to make a decision if this is a de minimis change that we don't really need to open it up for public comment again, or whether we do. So I just want to double check on something. I'm not prepared to do that at the moment, but I'll take a look more at the record just to get a feel for how I feel about this.
Yeah, I think that's wise. Bob, do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Just a question out of ignorance. Do we have to go back to the planning board with this at all?
Not necessarily. They made a, well, go ahead, Sean, if you want.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think
they're just going to say no, because this is our special permit that we've issued. So,
and I know that the applicant did meet with the planning board, and they did talk exclusively about only parking, and that was one of my concerns. Is they didn't really discuss the closure of the other entry. They only brought it forward that it was a de minimis change because they were losing some parking places, but yet it wasn't, they're not required, they're kind of like overflow extra that isn't required by the bylaw.
Without those parking spots, they still meet the minimum
absolutely
requirement for an
But the planning board didn't really get to revisit their site plan review process as far as ingress and egress goes. So that's the other thing I think, I don't know if you've gone back to them to talk about that, or if you've just left it with the planning board that you've lost parking places and that's it.
All right.
Sorry.
I
No, it's on. I just don't know. I
Yeah.
can check with the planning board chair just to see if if they've discussed the issue of the closure of the entry exit, or if they only, my understanding was that they only talked about the removal of the spaces, which is, I agree, is not a big
de
deal.
minimis, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I do have a hand here on Zoom. Matt, I'm gonna ask you to. Oh wait, no. You know what? I'm not the host anymore. Pete. So there's something I got to ask you. If we're all set, are we ready for him to take down?
Sure.
Pete, are you still there?
I am here. I did want to respond, but I wanted to hear from Mr. Carlino first. But do you want me to
Okay.
take the image down?
What I was gonna say is so that you could share your screen, I made you the host.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're Zoom savvy. You actually, if you click on the courtroom for Lee Town Hall and make me the host again, now I can have control back.
I don't know. I feel like this is a moment for me. I might take it, but no, of course. Hold on one second.
You can finish the meeting for us.
Yeah, if you want.
Feeling good about it.
Listen, I will make decisions all night long. You just tell me when you want me to start.
So, Matt, I'm gonna ask you to unmute here. Do you want to comment?
Yes.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, Matt Carlino, member of the planning board. I just wanted to mention that this is the first time I'm seeing the new egress. So I kind of thought that we should see that, but and maybe have a discussion what we first approved versus the changes. But just me speaking for myself, I didn't remember seeing the change. So that's all I wanted to mention.
You, Matt? Pete, you were gonna continue? You have something?
Just a couple of thoughts. I think we, maybe getting into a little bit of a quagmire, if you will. We collectively, ourselves and the town, unfortunately, can't drive the MassDOT approval. So while I can appreciate everybody's desire to certainly review it, Gordon's been on the board forever and served in his professional capacity as well. I don't know that we could do anything about it. MassDOT owns the right of way. We applied for a permit under these parcels and this traffic flow and this use. MassDOT came back with what they required, and they subsequently issued an access permit. So with that being said, I just offer that as consideration. I mean, we could discuss this for 10 more hours, and I guess at the end of the day, we're happy to do whatever we need to do. But the end result is that the owner and controller of this right of way has dictated what we're going to be required to do here. And they did that based on establishing the safest conditions possible. And so I just offer that because as you know, we have been delayed quite a while. We've spoken to the building commissioner. The building permit is finalized and ready for payment. And we were hoping to get through the meeting tonight. And so respectfully, I'll have any meeting that anyone in the town wants to have relative to this, but I don't know to what end we could actually affect any change. So I would just ask the board to consider that, if we're to lose another week or 2 weeks, I think we're going to come back and look at it again and say, yep, that's what MassDOT required. And just as a reminder, we've submitted that completed permit to the building commissioner actually a couple of months ago. So again, it's just food for thought for the board, we'd like to wrap this up tonight so we can pay the permit fee in the morning and keep going. But if that's not possible, I understand, but that's really what I'd ask the board to consider, is to what extent would a further deliberation change anything, given that neither us as the applicant or the town could necessarily make MassDOT change something. That's my concern, that we end up just going around the train. So, to the board's, that's my consideration. I ask the board to consider that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino, for that. I understand sort of a question of whether or not we question DOT's authority on the curb cut that or the new arrangement that they've put forward for you.
And maybe just one other thought is, during both the special permit process, the site plan review and special permit process, during both of those hearings, the boards deferred to the MassDOT access permit. And so in a way, in other words, they didn't, how can I say that better? Maybe they didn't mandate a certain design. The town didn't, so.
Did Matt have his hand up?
I was going to say, Matt, did you have something else, or was that still?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I don't want to hold anybody up unnecessarily. So if the select board, and I don't know if this is the appropriate meeting to be having this dialogue back and forth. I think if you guys decide that there is no say, we have no say in Mass DOT, we have to abide by Mass DOT's guidelines, then, so be it. But I don't know why, it just strikes me as seeing that new closure, that new island. It just seems like ever since the land with Lennox seemed to bring this up, it almost looks a little more, I don't want to say dangerous, but it looks tighter there now. I could be wrong. I don't have the existing approval, what the planning board in front of me to compare. But I guess if we have no say, then it doesn't matter. And if the select board decides that, then fine. But I don't believe the planning board has had any input on this, or was able to compare the existing plan that we approved to this plan to even have our input, if it's even warranted. So I just feel like, and then just seeing the design, it just seems like, boy, they're really cutting off the Lennox land for not to travel over. I don't know if that's intentional, but
Yeah, it is.
So again, do we have a say? If you guys decide we don't have a say, then I guess it is what it is. But I guess it's up to you to decide if the planning board should even have a discussion on this, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. No, I feel I hate to hold the whole process up here, but I definitely sort of concur with Gordon on just needing I need to consult a little bit more on exactly what authority, DOT came in to put on you here, and what that did to the site, and then whether or not it is, we can move this forward at this point. Bob, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, that was going back to my original question. I just think that we should be clear.
Yeah.
With the original plan. Maybe the planning board doesn't have standing, but if they come in and say this is too tight or this presents a threat, then that may be have a bearing on what
after we make our own.
That the DOT might listen to the planning board as well.
I have a thought, not to hold them up either, and that's not my intent. But if the applicant had gone to DOT and come to the planning board for their site plan review, and the Board of Selectmen, I was not on that board when it was approved, but if they had brought this particular plan, I think the issue is it needs to be looked at by both boards just to say, yeah, we wouldn't have any additional problems. or what was their concern, or are there any concerns? And the fact that the discussion previously with the planning board only dealt with parking places and not the change. I think that in fairness to the planning board for their site plan review, they should at least look at it. If they meet on Monday, I wouldn't be adverse to even having a special meeting on Wednesday at some point.
Nor would I.
To post it sooner so they could get going and not have to wait another 2 weeks for one of our meetings. To get this moving. And that also gives me a little more time to read through the paperwork and the minutes of the meetings, because I wasn't here at the meeting of the select board. So I'd like to read through your minutes to see what were the concerns, if any. And if there were no concerns on access, then that would make a difference to me to say, okay, if there were no concerns, there were no concerns. So I don't know if that would be something this board would entertain, is just get them in front of the planning board and then back to us by, Tuesday's voting day. We can't have a meeting on the 8th, but we could meet on the 9th if people are available, just for a very brief review of this to make the decision. Is this a major change or not a major change? And then they can get going.
Unfortunately, Chairman, we certainly appreciate the board's willingness to move this along and certainly want to give everybody the due time to do it. So we greatly appreciate that consideration to reconvene next week. And just for the purposes of efficiency, Dan is a supervisor and civil and traffic engineer from Fuss and O'Neill. Is there any additional context he could provide? I see the chairwoman is here, or she was, from the planning board and others. So, is there any additional context he could provide tonight that would help you in your review as it relates to MassDOT approval? I just offer that, given that he's here. But beyond that, we greatly appreciate the comments and the expedience to come right back to it. Thank you for that consideration.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut anybody off, but from an engineering perspective, purely engineering, not, no politics or anything else involved in any of this. One entrance into this parking lot is by far the safest condition. Our access concerns, at least internally, and me as the engineer of record, has always been that I never liked the original entrance, and I was concerned all along that Mass DOT would take one look at it and say, you got to clean that up, for lack of a better term. That's a very dangerous condition. You had a 39-foot opening leading into a parking lot that at the far northern end is only about 35 to 36 feet deep, including a parking space. So you have the potential for somebody backing out of that parking space and being right essentially in where you're making your turning movement. So narrowing that up, making it a conforming safe entrance was something that I think we all knew that the minute DOT saw it, we were going to end up here. And it's just it's unfortunate that it had to take this sort of path to get here, that we are here now. But this, from purely an engineering perspective, that entrance and the entrance as it's presented now, where it's both got, like I said, a single point of access, a standardized width, which is what DOT would require, and in a location where you have adequate sight distance in each direction, which we had looked at, and also room for both maneuvering and queuing behind that when you pull into the site, which is why being further to the south is advantageous, because you have room as you pull into the site where you're not immediately pulling up against somebody who could potentially be backing out of their parking spot. So from our perspective, and from my perspective as the engineer of record, this is a vast improvement over what the existing condition was when it was a restaurant. That's my 2 cents as the guy who gets to stamp the plans.
I appreciate that, and I understand it does seem like a safer. I think there's a couple other entries to a couple other places I can think of around town that aren't as safe as like a one narrow entry like that.
Mr. Chairman, I think the other is a matter of formality, because you do have a registered special permit with the old site plan attached. I think that's another reason to go back before the planning board, get the new dated plan to be approved as a de minimis plan, so that we can also do the same thing and then get that adjusted plan registered with your special permit. Because we need to keep that accurate to an accurate record. And this would allow us both to voice in on that and get the accurate record registered at the registry of deeds. That's all.
And
So-
just, yeah, we're good. Just for your information, in the original decision, the select board did not cite a specific site plan. And there was no registered site plan as part of that decision. But I think at the end of the day, we have a great path forward. And we certainly appreciate the board's consideration to come back next week and wrap it up. And we can be available to answer any questions from any of the departments or boards over the next couple of days. So we certainly appreciate that and can circle back with anything that the town may need from a paperwork perspective tomorrow as well. So if we're able to come back next Wednesday, we would certainly appreciate that. And we thank you for the time tonight.
Pretty sure that if you look back at the record of the planning board, though, their vote was specific to a site plan. Because I get kind of focused in on that kind of thing, so that there was a dated plan that their site plan review and approval was based on. Whether the select board chose not to take
Reference
that route,
that, yeah.
I can't comment on that right now. But I think that that's one thing we could help out with by actually making a recommendation next Wednesday if we choose to do that, and specifically citing that plan so that it's on record, it's there, it's part of the special permit, and we go forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, they have to get on the agenda.
You have to get it on the planning board agenda.
Yeah, so they post on Thursday.
There's
usually,
time.
So
Yeah.
we can let Beth know
Yeah, there's
tomorrow.
time.
Okay.
Matt, did you want to say something else?
Well, I just wanted, I hate to bring bad news, but I don't think we're meeting until the 14th. I could be wrong, but it's 2nd and 4th of the month.
Well, maybe you guys could post a special meeting to get this taken care of, like we're gonna do.
Oh, yeah, because
The
November
first is-
started on a Tuesday. So,
Yeah.
Normally you're
January
alternating
first,
with us,
yep.
Yeah.
but not in this case. November starts on a Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, so
All
I think
right.
our next meeting is the 14th.
Well, we can propose that you guys do that, see if the chairman will hold a meeting. If not, I mean, I don't really want to go forward without
Yeah.
input from the planning board, but I also don't want to hold this off any longer either. So maybe we both are going to have a special meeting. We can
Yeah.
discuss it with the planning board and see if we can get that done, get it arranged for next Monday.
Or potentially a joint meeting. Would that be an option?
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. I'd meet on Monday or Wednesday jointly or not, whatever. So we can get this done one way or another. We need a decision so
Yeah.
they can get going or not.
So why don't we do that? We'll try to see if we can get a meeting
I'll reach out.
tomorrow, next week. Peg, you've got your hand up on Zoom. Did you want to add something?
No, I
please
think it's a good idea.
Yeah, just
I
let
did.
everybody know who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Peg Byron, and I think it's a good idea to look at the plan as a group on the planning board. I think it's a
Okay.
good idea. I think it might even be helpful to them, as Gordon said, that it would be registered then in the registry of deeds, and
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Peg. I think so. It sounds like we're going to try to, because we really want to work with you guys. We want to get you going. So it sounds like we're going to try to reach out to the planning board, get some sort of meeting going next week to address this. And
I want to do Monday or Wednesday.
yeah,
don't
I can
care.
do Monday too.
Or Tuesday as well, or is Tuesday?
No,
off?
Tuesday we can't with this voting.
Oh, right, voting, yeah, okay. I'll follow up with everybody and get in touch with you, Pete, as soon as we have a consensus from both boards.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
and
appreciate-
Chris, let me do the same on our side, just so that we can get everybody here in one shot and be available to answer questions. So I will, Chris, if we could, I'll connect with you tomorrow with some scheduling stuff and we'll go from there.
Yeah, good. Appreciate your time, Sweetgrass team.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So our next discussion, we have an LED streetlight discussion. Chris, do you want to, is there anybody here from?
No,
that's
but
right,
they did provide, and well, apologies for this took a while for some
We
reason.
did get an updated proposal this time.
Yeah, so the board came back and we had a presentation from Realterm back in September, and then they were gonna give us some new pricing, and it took a little while, not necessarily that the pricing took a while, but we had some technical issues with the Excel spreadsheets, but we do have the updated numbers. And so what we looked at right now was all of the non-decorative fixtures. The decorative fixtures in downtown Lee are already in LED. So we could do there's 401 what they call Cobra headlights. And those would be converted to LED, smart LED, which would have an additional, I think it's like a 7-pin connection where we could add other features like Wi-Fi to them, cameras, whatever, there's a number of different options. So that comes to $279,855 to do the 401 Cobra head fixtures. If we do that under the TELP financing that's offered for this type of project, they could start on that, right away, and we would be cash flow positive from the energy savings from day one on that. So they're looking at the lease payment of just over about $19,542 lease payment on that, and then the actual utility cost would go way down. So we normally paying, I'm just trying to read, there's small numbers on here, but the utility payment to Eversource would go down because of the LEDs would use a lot less electricity. So right now that budget is at $76,500. They're anticipating between the lease and the electric that we would be under 60 for that. So
total proposed, yeah, I see here, year one, 55,800 is there.
And that would, the smart LED would give us the option of dimming all lights, specific lights. It also provides updates, and I know the gentleman from Paul from Realterm went over all this, but gives us updates if a light is out, that sort of thing, but cuts way down on our energy use to do that. So I did ask him also about Wi-Fi for downtown, because I know that's a topic that we hear a lot about. And so we looked at
so with downtown, because they're decorative streetlights, they're not going to be, and they're already LED.
They're already
right?
LED.
They're not going to be part of this.
They would not be part of this,
right.
But we would be able to add that in a future. In a future project to add those, and they were suggesting as we continue to save money on the LEDs, well, a couple things could happen. We could go back to town meeting for a capital appropriation to do the downtown lights, and then do the TELP financing on the others and get that started. And again, we'd be cash flow positive right from the start. We would not be cash flow positive adding in downtown. That's where because it's considerably more expensive on the decorative. We would be long-term for sure.
Are you saying that the decorative lights, the existing decorative lights are adaptable?
They're LEDs already though, but they're not smart LEDs.
But so you can adapt them to smart LEDs?
We could change them to smart LEDs, but it's a more expensive process.
Right.
What I did ask them though on the Wi-Fi is and I have a list here.
You have a number of Cobra heads, right?
Yeah, so we have some Cobra heads. There's one near Moe's, one down the street at Dresser Hall, one near Lee Hardware, and then we have one right by the library in Franklin Street that would get changed over. And so if we wanted to do, they can run some tests and see if that Wi-Fi would travel enough that it would cover the whole downtown area from those lights. So this project could, I can't say for sure, offer downtown Wi-Fi. without hitting the LEDs right away. The other thing that we're kind of waiting on that could help us with the downtown is the governor's second round of ARPA, which has not gone through the legislature yet, does include downtown money for Lee downtown, which right now, again, none of this is official yet, but it's the ARPA 2.0 investments would be downtown recovery for Lee for $250,000. So if that came through, this could be a potential project to do the downtown part separately. So, and I don't think it would be that whole amount either. We'd have, room for other projects, but.
So what's the cost of running the Wi-Fi and who handles it? Is it through Spectrum, through some other company? Do we have to get a server somehow? What's the issue with the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so the Wi-Fi, that would be an add-on later. This would just put us in position to be able to add Wi-Fi if they found it.
Sure, so if we did do it though, are we then obligated to have some kind of mainframe server or something, or does it go through Spectrum with an additional cost? So there's always a cost.
Yeah, so that part I can't speak of. I don't have the information. This, all that I have right now would be the step one to convert, give us the smart features of the lights, but then the ability to add on to those something such as Wi-Fi. So that would be a separate, but it gives us the ability. So the next step in my mind, if we were to go forward with this under the financing, would be to have them come in, they'll check from those fixtures, see if Wi-Fi is a possibility to reach the area we want, and then we could get another proposal, perhaps by town meeting, to add that in. So
I'd like to know from them, maybe they can tell us who would actually be the manager of the Wi-Fi system. Who do we lock into? I'm guessing it's Spectrum.
That would be my guess too.
That's my guess. So how much is Spectrum going to charge us? For that number of heads and that kind of coverage, and and then because we need that also to know where we're going to head.
And I can follow up with them on that. I wasn't looking that far in because at this point it was, like I say, this was the money to just change to LED, which again, we can do that and as a savings right away. But it gives us the ability to add those later. So.
But if we add LED without the 7-pin connector for smart, then we're coming back.
No, this includes the 7-pin.
Oh, okay.
It just doesn't include the Wi-Fi, but it's set up to attach the Wi-Fi.
Right. Gotcha. This is what we're looking at now is the smart option.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Good enough.
That we're cash flow positive from day one, and
so it's just we have modules.
We have the ability further down the line to say, okay, here.
As long as we're not going over what we've already done
Yeah.
and making changes again.
If we had gone with the non-smart and just converted to LED, then, which would save us about $50,000 less to do the non-smart, we would not have the ability to expand. So it seemed like a no-brainer to give us that, for the extra $50,000 to add that feature on, which I guess it's 44,150 is the smart control on there. So
closer to 40 than 50.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Just
I
saying.
think he said that like 90% of the towns go with that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds like it makes sense.
And there's potential for more energy savings if we dim the lights after a certain time as well.
Sure.
Right.
So,
you could program them to drop after a certain time.
or if you had a resident that was like, this street light's driving me crazy.
Can you really turn it down?
We could actually go and say, that one light.
At 9 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock or whatever, yeah. Nice. Yeah, so do you guys want to make a decision on this tonight? Is the options to bring it to town meeting or to kind of drop it at this point, or?
Yeah, so our option, we have kind of three options. One, we could do nothing. Two, we could put that on the warrant for town meeting as a capital expense, or option three, which this is showing would be for the TELF financing, which would start that now, but then give us some flexibility with capital if we wanted to do other things later. So, I mean, if we do it with capital, the payback's a little, because we're paying, I think 4.5% interest. But still, again, cash flow positive even with the interest. It just gives us a little more capital left if we do it that way.
Right, because
And
we would be relying on town meeting capital
Right,
to
yeah.
fund this. if we
Right
went
now,
that.
we're just this would be covered in our operating budget because the savings in electricity would more than pay for the purchase of the lights. So we can still keep it within our operating budget.
So we don't have
It's
to go back
already
to town
approved,
meeting for
right.
this, or we could do this without town meeting approval.
Because they've already approved,
Right,
they
X
already
amount
did
of
the
dollars.
appropriation for streetlights, we're not gonna exceed that.
Okay.
Okay.
The benefit, obviously, to going to town meeting is we're not financing it. The downside is, that's one more chunk out of that pot if we wanted to add more. I mean, we don't have our free cash numbers yet,
Right.
but, I'm thinking on the,
gonna be
we're gonna
close.
probably have around $1 million to work with total.
Yeah.
So, for everything, so, but that's just a guesstimate right now, so.
I just think with the savings alone, I mean, I'm not afraid to go forward at this point with,
So to go forward, we need some harder numbers? Are they gonna come in and do the Wi-Fi checks as a separate issue, kind of a parallel path?
Yeah, so if we went forward right now on the financing option, we would move right to the next phase, where they would actually go out and start. So Real Term actually would go out and start bidding for the work to be done. So they're a consultant that bids out to the 3 major suppliers of the fixtures to get us the best price on those, and then to contractors for doing the installation, and they would coordinate that, as well as we have to purchase the infrastructure from Eversource because they currently own that. So we pay the bills on it, but they own the old infrastructure that's, so.
So by when you say we can go forward with this, there's no agreements to sign, this is just getting the ball rolling with a verbal commitment
Right.
to move forward?
They would come back with the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that, as long as it's a
paperwork,
verbal thing at this point, until we
yeah.
get a little more concrete, and I don't have a problem with that, saying, because I think it's a good idea in the long run. So whatever we have to do
Yeah.
to move forward, like, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I was trying
Taking
to,
the next step.
I was trying to find a downside to this whole situation. I mean, there's not really much there, so.
I agree.
But are we looking to make a motion then for the financing option?
Yeah, if that was good with you
I think-
guys.
I think
then,
that's what it sounds like.
I can get working on that, and we'll have more information to sign as we move along. So.
You're the procurement guy, you have to tell us
yeah.
if we're within the lane that we're supposed to be in, then that's fine. I just don't want to veer off into someplace we're not supposed to go.
So I think,
So what do you need?
I think I need a motion. I'm looking to entertain a motion to pursue the smart LED streetlight conversion, with, what was it, talc financing?
TELP, yeah,
TELP.
yeah. I
TELP
can't remember
financing.
the acronym
Yeah.
right now, but yeah, it's specifically for this type
Right.
of project.
I think that was the motion. I didn't make it yet, but if you want me to, I can say it again.
No, I'm sure she's got it. Do you want to do it, Bob? You want me to do it? I don't care.
yeah, well, so moved.
Okay. Second, so
I have a
second.
motion. I have a second.
Okay.
If there's no further discussion, anybody on Zoom? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Should be an interesting road we're about to go down.
We'll see. I'm curious about that Wi-Fi option. Before we enter town administrator's report, I have one last minute utility cut permit in front of us. This is for McKnight Landscape and Excavation Services, owned by the Sorrentino Group. It's at 109 Center Street, and it's for the installation of a sewer service. They have a dig safe number, trenching permit. I have a map here on the end, but it doesn't really tell us much of what is going on there. Do we have an applicant here who wants to speak to any of this? Let's see. please identify yourself for everyone.
Mr. Chair, Select Board, thank you for meeting with me. I'm representing the Sorrentino Group, not as DPW, just so it's for clarification. What we're doing is just attaching the sewer line. There's three apartments and one property all registered on 109 Center Street. For a visit from DEP last week, we have 15 days to make a move to attach the properties back there, connect it into town sewer. Upon research, obviously through the DPW and stuff, we found out that the sewer main is 30 inches deep, about 18 inches off the sidewalk. We already have a 2-inch sewer line going down the main driveway, so it's just a curb or a utility cut of a 3 foot by maybe 2 feet deep off the side of the sidewalk. Take out one section of the sidewalk, attach into the sewer line. It's a 6-inch sewer line, re-backfill, blacktop, new piece of sidewalk goes in, and then that's everything back is going to go to the sewer tank.
So how far into the road are you gonna be?
It's 18 inches, honestly.
Okay, so it's not.
It's in the breakdown lane of Center
right.
Street. It's on
Right.
Joe's Diner side of Center Street,
Super.
but it's 18 inches. It's not gonna affect anything. Upon talking to Craig, he would like one detail officer for the day. Talking with McKnight, there might not be the one doing it because of the timeline we were given by DEP. I met with Ryan McAlter today. He's saying within a 2-week period that he could probably get it done, and he could do it within 4 hours. So it's a 4-hour shutdown at the end of a driveway, but it's all going to be in the breakdown lane of Center Street. Understandably, we just paved it last year.
Yeah, I know.
I get
That's
that.
the concern.
But the hefty fines we're facing
Yeah,
from DEP
right.
if it doesn't get done.
Gotcha. Well, you just have to address your trenching permit number if your excavator changes.
Yeah. Well, so the nice thing about it with my hydraulics license, as personal again, is all the trenching permit, dig safe, and everything is done through myself.
So
representing.
your trenching permit's through you right
Yes.
now? Okay.
Yeah, so everything is done on my behalf for the Sorrentino Group. The only way I'm involved is for the road conditions afterwards, which I deferred everything to Lenny Tisdale.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I deferred
Don't be
everything.
involved
Yeah.
in that.
So I'm just involved as a Sorrentino Group, as representing the group, not as the DPW guy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it clarifies how far in the road and all that stuff. So. All right. I don't have a problem with that.
Bob?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the cut permit for 109 Center Street.
I'll second it.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we have the town administrator. Chris, you got a number of things here on your list today.
Well, let me start with Golden Hill, and I apologize,
Yeah.
sorry you guys had to wait so long for the, when we posted the agenda, I wasn't sure if anyone would be coming, so I put it under my report. But thank you for your patience. I know we have Linda and the Butteries here tonight. So they've been working on a number of projects at Golden Hill, and I helped arrange the trail work that was done this summer by Greenagers, and so we appreciate everything that's being done up there. We were able to put about $6,000 towards Greenagers of ARPA funding to redo those trails, and so we also were able to, through our budget for the town forest, fund a sign, and Linda has been really great about going to work with the sign company to do that, and has a draft and wanted to share it with the board tonight. So we will be hopefully soon adding a new sign to Golden Hill Forest, and I'll turn it over to you, Linda. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. I want to introduce my cohorts in this project. Is Dave Buttery and his wife Linda Buttery, neighbors of mine on Laurel Street, and wanderers in Golden Hill Town Forest, one of the many wanderers. The problem is I get calls by people that I know that say they want to go in the town forest, but there's no signs and they were afraid. The last signage that was done for the town forest was done by David Monterella, an Eagle Scout, and that was in 1988. And that paper laminated sign has long since disappeared. So we don't want people wandering in Golden Hill Town Forest needlessly, going round and round in circles. As you can see, the trail does kind of go in circles because you can come out in somebody else's backyard. So.
Linda, can you do me a favor and show the people at home just the nice pretty map that you got?
We've got a copy.
We've got copies, we can see it, yeah.
I gave you samples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understood.
And what we have here is actually a proof. We are going
It's
to
a
be
proof,
working on
yeah.
this a little bit more. We wanted to do a little bit more of the designing, but what we have on this is some information. We'll have a legend which has, you know, areas in the town forest.
Okay.
We have a little bit of the history of Golden Hill Town Forest, and we have some guide rules, general hiking guide rules. And we'll try to include a few pictures from Golden Hill.
Nice.
So we are submitting this to you with a rock bottom budget for the making of the sign from Ann LeBeer at Your Color Connection, because this was her territory as a kid running around in Golden Hill, and she still lives up that way. So she will be working with us. We have some markers coming in to tag certain areas to keep the trail straight so people will know which loop they're going on. And what we would like to do, you have that copy, you can have this copy, and to take a look at it, mostly for any areas that you're familiar with, that you think may a special note. This is all subject to change. And the format we want to have is the trail system, which is elongated. So the sign will be 2 by 3. And we hope the DPW will have a iron, like stop sign post that they can use to post the new sign on inside the gate at Golden Hill. It's a very wet area, so even using pressure-treated wood for a sign is a little not as long-lasting as a metal one. So we will try to mark off certain areas here through Golden Hill and maybe put a name on it as Deer Run or Turkey Trot or who knows what. But we don't want people to get lost. And it would be nice to have that. It's a very special place. It is very quiet from Laurel Street once you get into the forest there, and the ridges are all over protecting you. So this was hopefully something that the town would approve. For the invoice that Ann gave was a extremely generous price for the work involved. And so we'll work on details, but we'd like your input. If you have any thoughts on it, you can look at it, you know, through the week or so, and Chris has my email. He could, you know, give me any information and we can include that. So I'll give you the little bigger one. You had the Land Trust logo on it.
Yeah, I see that.
It's not really the Land Trust, just because we
Actually,
are.
give it to Chairman. So I have a question. Is there, I know the little pull-off parking area that's up there. Wouldn't it benefit the area to have like a little kiosk, kind of a setup like Mass Highway does at their pull-offs, where it's a little tiny wooden structure with a little roof over it, and you can put your posts under there so it's kind of out of the weather?
I don't know where you would put
Well,
it.
it would be on, well, as you said, on the other side of the parking area. It's just a couple posts, some wood with a little shed roof, just to protect it from the weather. If you ever go up Route 7, there's a number of Mass Highway DOT pull-offs where they have these little areas where they have a map or, you know, information about the area. I just thought if we could maybe think about doing something like that, maybe we could have somebody who would volunteer to be able to help us out or get hold of you and talk to others. And it seems like it would be very beneficial, longevity of the sign, and also you can post other issues there.
We have the material that this sign is proposed to be made out of is one of the newest materials, and it's very long lasting and should be good. There could be vandalism up that way. The DPW with had done the parking lot, reconfigured it, straightened it out, put new posts in, and put the sign that said Golden Hill Town Forest. That was the first sign. So that is kind of, you need parking spaces, and I always ask them to trim back a lot farther away because you know, to get more cars in there, and people will park on the grassy side. I don't know if it really needs that.
Okay.
You can think about it, see if anybody else thinks about it, but the sign itself for the trail is, I think, the most important. And we'll have that little information, we may cut out some stuff. And the Lee Land Trust does have a website now because of this year. So we do have posted guidelines for hiking there, and people could visit that.
Do you mark the trails with, like, if you have a red and blue trail, do you put red on each side of the tree to really mark
Yeah,
it out
we're
well in your
gonna-
loops?
We're thinking of using discs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
With the special screws, so it'll be
Yeah, as
loose.
long as it
With the
doesn't
string on
harm,
it.
yeah, because you don't want to harm the trees and
Yeah.
have it grow into the,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
good.
So that's hopefully what we'll
Sounds
have up,
good.
so people can wander in the winter.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And take a nice run down that new hill there that's been fixed.
No, it's a beautiful walk. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful
It is.
area.
It is special.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, so thanks again, Linda and David. My next thing was a update on the rest of River. So I did get the weekly update. The 7th interim baseline monitoring plan was completed on October 26th. Samples were taken from 8 locations by GE, and then for quality control purposes, split samples to EPA. And this is the sampling results will be used to refine the 2-year pre-remediation baseline sampling program scheduled to begin in 2023. The 4th 2022 quarterly dam inspections at Rising Pond Dam and Woods Pond Dam are scheduled for November 21st. And GE contractors are conducting bank and sediment sampling in Reach 5A, designed to characterize contamination in the banks and sediment, which will be used to help design a remediation plan. Field work is expected to last through the month of November. So, in some other news,
Before we move on, Chris, if I could just add to your Rest of River update. I know we kind of missed our last regular meeting. We didn't really give everybody a full update about where we are, because we were talking about going to different boards of selectmen from the other towns involved in this process, and we reached out to Stockbridge, but unfortunately they don't really want to entertain us on this issue, which is sort of telling about where the select board's at. I just wanted to kind of provide that update. Do we have is there anything else that we wanted to update?
I had a couple
anyone?
other related to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Board of Health has
Right.
scheduled a hearing. Will be November 19th at 10 a.m. at the high school. So that will be their adjudicatory hearing.
And that's on a Saturday.
Saturday at 10 a.m. in the high school auditorium. And then we did hear back, we did submit, which came from a suggestion from the forum that we had at the high school back in August, a FOIA request to EPA that's been submitted. We got an initial response looking for some clarification, which was taken care of. We are now, they have indicated that there will be fees involved with the FOIA request. We are waiting for that quote to take the next step. So that's the status on that right now is we got a response clarified, waiting for their quote, and then I'm assuming they'll want that fee paid before
I'm sure, yeah.
they give us the information we're asking for. I also just wanted to share publicly, it was announced by the governor last week, so that Lee did receive $50,000 for our master plan. So we received $50,000 from community development grant, so that will fund our master plan. We also, as you all know, received a grant for the HMP and MVP that started last week. We'll be meeting again on the 17th of November. The CPA committee is hopefully, we're planning an organizational meeting this month the introductory meeting. Hopefully, was waiting to hear back from all the members, but we're looking at potentially the end of next week. And then at the end of November, the CPA Coalition will come in and do a training for that group, because this will be a new group for, new for Lee. And also, we, as I've mentioned before, we also received a grant for a capital improvement plan. We had our initial meeting with the consultant last week, and that will be continuing until right through. We probably going to be close to it if that makes town meeting or not. It will be shooting for a spring conclusion to that, and we'll have a full comprehensive capital improvement plan ready to have available online, and a published version as well that will address all of our infrastructure and capital needs. So lastly, in my report, so the Board of Public Works requested a meeting. I did respond in writing. You guys the board received a copy of that letter. The letter that I sent to this board and the Board of Public Works included some historical data, how the board was formed and so forth, and addressing some of the concerns about where the authority of that board rests. And there's been ongoing issues on that for about the last 25 years or so. So based on the data and the recommendation from the State Division of Local Services was, my recommendation to this board was that we seek legislation to dissolve that board. And that's again based on a number of things which you all have in the letter, but it's the only one left in the county. We had recommendations from the state for that, and based on past issues. So I'm just sharing that the letter went out. I know you all received it, and if there's any other questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, so to that end, I know that there are a lot of issues here that have gone on for, as you mentioned, over 20 years on authority and whatnot. So as we go forward, if it were to go down the road of dissolving, there are some statutory requirements for the board in our bylaws, our corporate bylaws.
Right.
And also there was a special act, that was modified. I think what we have to do and should do is also entertain some time to talk to the Board of Public Works members to get input, and just as a discussion point to say, well, if for any reason this dissolves, who's going to, where are we going to take those issues that they do have authority, setting water rates, storage, and I don't know that I'm necessarily all that interested in setting sewer and water rates. Does it go to, recommendations from our superintendent or to you or to, so I think we need to get some of that stuff also discussed so that we're clear on what the board does have rights to do statutorily, and then what would we do with them.
Yeah, so I can share in that letter that there was, by bylaw, there's mostly what they do, is water and sewer. So a lot of towns have instituted just a water and sewer commission specifically for those things. So along with this would be a legislative act for that would be required the town meeting would have to petition for the dissolving of that board, but then there would be a bylaw change locally, which would then have to, and I believe there is, forget how many, there's about a half a dozen or so bylaws on there that we would need to do the bylaw change, and then either, in some cases, those might go to Superintendent of Public Works. In other cases, it may incorporate a water and sewer board that would hear abatements or rate changes.
Like an abatement appeal kind of thing.
Not the other situations that we don't have any other department right now under that scrutiny, I guess, that for all of the other, the water and sewer part, that's never been in dispute.
No.
And changing that over to a new board for water and sewer rates would be a very easy thing to do through a bylaw change. It's the other aspects that have created the issues in the past, so.
Yeah, I think we still need to talk with the board members and discuss, you know, I always think it's better to air this stuff out and try and find your way first to something that everybody can agree on is good for the town, you know, and so I think that would be a good first step, you know, toward finding out where we're going to go with consensus. I know we've been through similar issues before, and you know, I think talking about it as much as you can publicly so that people are aware of what, you know, where we're headed and why we're headed, and get some consensus would be a good thing. So I'm all for eventually, you know, having a kind of a group, almost a brainstorming idea, and get feedback. You know, why do we have, you know, tensions in the past and whatnot, and what are the problems and how are we going to solve them? You know, I think it's good just to do this, get together and have a talk. So that's all. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, well, I can certainly reach out to set that up. I'm not sure what the timeline would be like on
I don't
this
know,
board,
but I mean, if we're going to move something forward on the town meeting warrant for a vote, because I know before the legislature sent it back for a general vote of the town, and then it had to go back, and, you know, so it's quite a process. It's not something that's getting done this Friday.
Right, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, it would definitely go back.
It's going to take a while, so I think we have time to sort of air our concerns and discussions on both sides, you know, both from the board and from I don't want to say the town side and the board side, because we're all together. You know, this is supposed to be a team going forward. But I think we need to have a discussion, an open roundtable discussion on how we can get where we feel is the best for the townspeople to move their business forward in a prompt and timely manner. That's all.
So would you propose maybe a joint meeting then?
At some point, yeah, I think so. I know I've reached out to a few members. I owe some phone calls back. I tried to reach some tonight, missed. I've been busy. It's been a crazy 3 or 4 days since all this has transpired. So tomorrow I'm hoping to make some contacts, and same with Thursday, to sort of get a feel for how can we go forward. And it's best for the townspeople.
Yeah, how have you gotten any response from the letter as far as anything, Chris?
So we had a meeting today. There was no discussion of that. I have not heard anything from any board members directly. So.
Good. Well, maybe everybody's mulling this over to figure out how we're going to go forward. So, okay.
Yeah, so when the board, let me know when I can reach out for a, you know, a joint meeting if you'd like to go that route. I can send some information to you on potential dates. So.
I do. I think that there's something too that could be useful there to do that. In sort of where do the duties lie? You know, when we sort of. Because I think from what's best for the people, dissolving this board might actually kind of expedite some of the issues that we've had with different approvals and that sort of thing that this board doesn't necessarily need to handle. And I think that, you know, it's actually interesting. Didn't the town already vote to do this back in the 90s?
Went through town meeting in the 90s, and then went to the state back in 1996. And so just what happened after that was kind of so I'm not sure if it ever made it to the floor.
Right, I don't think it did.
So the people of Lee actually, the town meeting actually voted to do this back in 1996. Right. I believe at the time our current representative, not our current representative. The representative in 1996, our state rep in 1996, not Smitty, but was, if I remember correctly, in a dispute with the Speaker of the House. So a lot of the bills from Berkshire County never reached the floor, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, it was nothing against us personally.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I kind of view this as sort of an evolution of town government. I think that, you know, no other towns sort of have a DPW board or a board of public works surrounding us, and not necessarily sure. I think that these other duties can be, you know, picked up, and I think that these, nothing personal against anybody on this board, I think that they've all contributed a lot, and I really appreciated Bob's input when we hired Lenny, and, you know, all these different guys, and I think they'd be very useful on helping us in other matters. So I'd like to kind of see that start to happen. It's where, you know, so let's have the conversation with them. Let's find out, you know, how to move this thing forward.
And just to kind of reiterate what you said in the letter, I do, appreciate and respect everything that that we've had members that have been on there for a number of years.
Over 30.
And we've come to, I guess, like I said, that's the water and sewer rates by bylaw. That is, that's one end of it. Then we have some permits that is another end of it that you mentioned, Sean, of where things are a little less efficient in Lee than other towns because of that. And then we have where the biggest disputes lie is on authority over the actual department, which is where I was saying is not something that we have for any other department in town except the school department, which has a school committee.
Yeah.
Ryan Brown can buy a $500,000 fire truck with his staff input. He's a professional. We've hired him for this purpose. A lot of, in the experience over the last couple months, a lot of things have been kind of bogged down because of this, where we haven't, we've gone through a lot of extra bureaucracy for some of the day-to-day workings of the department that aren't imposed on any other departments in the town. And I know Zach is still here. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Let's not get involved in the discussion.
There's similar issues that we need to clear up with that.
That's one reason I'm mentioning having a discussion, because if we come to a consensus that in fact there are certain things that are required of a Board of Public Works by the legislation and by our town bylaw sections, our corporate bylaw, if it's going to semi-stay the same and just all we're going to do is go through all these motions and then have a board with just a different name, but with the same requirements in the bylaw for sewer, then I want to talk about that, because that's not what I'm after either. Is just change the name and, replace some seats.
That's a good point.
I think we need to talk about that and say, look, if we can get to the same place without going through that hassle, let's do it. And so that just means that we have to really, you're only going to get that by discussing things out in the open and try and figure this out. Because I've watched it, I've seen not just this board, other boards create kind of internal policies which really isn't, backed up by our empowerment in the bylaw and whatnot. So it's just a matter of let's have some discussion first before we go too far down that road, but we keep it as an option.
I will reach out to both boards to see what a mutual time would be in the next month or so, if that works for all of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your reports, Chris?
I believe it does.
Sean,
Bob?
Yeah, I'll just take a minute.
Take two.
Thank you. There's be a lot of dead air here. No, I just wanted to go back to the rest of the river agreement, and we were on in some areas we were criticized that we didn't go into enough detail at the last meeting, and I just wanted to assure the residents and the voters that, in fact, that there are a lot of balls in the air. Things are very, very fluid right now. We had 2 meetings, select board meetings at the school. I don't think anybody's confused about what the majority of people in the town of Lee want. The question is how to move forward and how to move forward intelligently, wisely, and prudently. That's where we're at right now. And it was stated as fact that the select board had not done anything since that meeting, and that simply is not the case. And I just wanted to assure my friends and the people that we represent that we have in fact met. It's about litigation. It was done in executive session on more than one occasion. As I said, there are a lot of balls in the air. There are HRIs in federal court. There's an appeal in Superior Court. We have the Board of Health, which I'm not going to comment at all at this time because that's their business, and they're an excellent group, and they're going to do what they need to do. But what we need to do is all predicated on everything else that's going on. But we are on top of it. We've heard what the voters have had to say. As far as reaching out to other select boards, to be clear, I've stated this before, I reached out personally to all 3 select board members in Stockbridge, and all 3 agreed to meet with this board. We then reached out somewhat informally.
Well, yeah, it was
we didn't write a letter to the select board of Stockbridge, but we asked through the town administrator, and he indicated that they are no longer interested in having that conversation. Well, I haven't followed up on that just yet because, as I said, there's a lot going on. But I would like to be able to talk to the select board in Stockbridge and Great Barrington and Lennox and Sheffield, not to the select board per se, but I would like to be able to talk to the residents of those towns.
Yeah, I see these, if we get the chance, sort of presenting, here's what we've discovered since the,
Yes, exactly.
Through the forums, through the
Informational only.
Informational only, and that, because I just think while we're separated by town lines, we all are neighbors, and we all share a river. Together, and we all impact each other in that sense. And I just hope that there will come a time, I would like to make a time, where the voters in all these other towns would have a clearer understanding, because GE and the EPA have done a good job of burying the facts here. And if you live in Lee, you know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
But we are in motion. I just wanted to assure people that that's the case.
All right, you're into 3 minutes now.
I know.
You did well.
I think I repeated a bunch of stuff, didn't I?
You had to make up the time, right, Bob? No, it's good. Well, you're letting people know we are not just sitting here doing nothing.
Right.
Gordon, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, well, I would just
Anything
mention,
further?
I don't know if you guys got the email about, there is a number of trainings that are, I think are interesting. It's like very low cost, having to do with planning, especially our planning board and zoning board of appeals should certainly be doing that. But because we do special permits, there's also a nice training about how to perform special permit reviews, how to come to decisions, that kind of thing. I think it'd be very valuable. And talked to the chair of the zoning board of appeals just the other day on another issue, but just recommended to her to reach out to her group to make sure that they really do take advantage of this, because it's kind of eye-opening. And the laws change all the time, because judges keep changing the way things, the way things are interpreted, and we have to keep up with that. So this type of training is really valuable. So I'm hoping that as many planning board and zoning board and select board members as possible will take the ones. In fact, it's great because there's one on master planning.
Oh, nice.
So I know
We're right in the middle.
I think Peter Blum was very interested in jumping onto the one on how to create a master plan. So I think that's very timely. A lot of this stuff is very timely. So, thank you. That's about it.
Thank you both for.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, our next regular meeting is November 15th. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.